Now, for today's video, I wanted to talk about something that we haven't talked about on the channel for literally years. Like my other videos where I talk about Jurassic Park canon and lore, this is a bunch of older material stitched together in order to tell a larger story. It's going to be a comprehensive review, commentary, and breakdown of the very first sequel to Jurassic Park. It even came out before Michael Crichton's book, The Lost World. This is the story of Tom's Raptor series, which was a run that begins right after the first movie from 1993. Now, believe it or not, this is actually a very important piece of Jurassic Park history because ideas would get used from this inside of John Sayles' infamous unmade Jurassic Park 4 script, as well as some of the stuff in Colin Trevorrow's first Jurassic World. Alan Grant, Ian Malcolm, and Ellie Sattler all return alongside some other people from the first movie. If you know, you know. So when I first covered all of this material back in 2017 at the beginning of me making YouTube videos, it was the first time I was ever going over the story, so you're getting my genuine reaction to reading all of this as it happens. Anyways, guys, I've talked long enough. Here is the very first sequel to Jurassic Park that you've probably never even heard about. 1 hour of the canon and lore behind the Jurassic Park Raptor series. As promised, today we are going to go into the first part of Top's Jurassic Park Raptor comics, and I can assure you it's a very unique story, and one quite original to the series' mythos. Our story opens in the aftermath of the original incident on Isla Nublar. 3 days have passed since the terrible events of Jurassic Park, and our protagonists, Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler, find themselves again in the presence of the fearsome Tyrannosaurus Rex. The Rex is in battle with tanks sent in by the U.S. Army, which it's also making short work of. The Army deploys tranquilizing agents against the beast, hoping to stop the tyrant lizard before it kills them all. And there, standing directly in front of the Queen of Nublar herself, is Dr. Grant and Dr. Sattler, patiently waiting for the inevitable. A man calls out to the two scientists after the dinosaurs fall into the earth, scolding them for freezing in fear of the behemoth. Alan assures the man that it was not fear that led them to stand in front of the beast, but rather knowledge of the animal itself. This creature's vision is based on movement, after all, and Grant knew it was only a matter of time before those tranks began to take effect on old Rexy. In fact, Grant tells the general leading the operation to immediately administer a stimulant to keep her breathing, as they've already given the Rex too much. They don't want this animal to die, just to be kept under control. An idea Dr. Sattler thinks Malcolm would find rather ironic. The lead scientist helping the Army with this mission, Dr. Fisher, doesn't enjoy Ellie's mentioning of Ian and insists that these creatures demand to be studied. Their capture is necessary for the scientific community, and if Grant and Sattler want to continue climbing the ladder in their respective fields, they better be complacent. A soldier interrupts the group to announce the team's lack of any velociraptor egg discovery. This is good news to everyone, but Grant. Alan knows that most of the animals in Jurassic Park were already breeding.
Happy Sunday, everyone.
That intelligent wouldn't let their nests be easily found in the open, and asks Dr. Fisher to survey the land more carefully to ensure the island lacked raptors. The general finds this idea idiotic, as he recalls the raptors being confined to the pen until the power had been completely shut off. However, Ellie lets the general know that raptors are particularly cunning dinosaurs, as she and Grant even witnessed them opening doors while being hunted. Fisher refuses to continue the search, prompting Grant and Ellie to continue on their own, desperate to find any trace of the animals out there, and hoping to destroy
chilling, watching Jurassic videos. Feel free to ask questions, comments, any future uploads I'm gonna make, and yeah, just if you have nothing to do this morning, just
Grant notices the tide hasn't come in just yet. That this far into the island, caves may be abundant on the beach.
Oh, congratulations!
For hiding one's brood.
Yeah, how's your morning going?
To this unseen area of Nublar and begin their descent into its depths, quietly and carefully. They push through the wet passages, keeping their guns at the ready and their eyes on the ground looking for tracks.
Oh, so many kids can have YouTube channels these days.
A stranger shoots out of the water and into the cave, announcing himself as George Lagawa,
what's up, Cash?
Procurer of rare animals. In this case,
hi, Kyle. How's everyone's morning? How's everyone's Sunday's morning? Just gonna make a chill live, just watching Clayton's videos. You can comment, ask about any uploads that I have in the future, so any video ideas, and I'm uploading a couple of shorts within this week, so. And I thought I'd keep it casual, so I'm not putting the full suit on, I'm just being casual, putting the vest on, that's it. So. Alright, shout out Strawn Robertson 2911, thanks for tuning into this live.
The hunter seems
Yeah, I'm good. Just drinking a chilled coffee right now and having, brownies. So, because that's healthy, right?
The sharp fangs of the mother raptor mawing into this in the ground looking for
So, I
tracks.
think the most recent video Clayton uploaded is the complete Raptor story
A stranger
from
shoots out of the water and into
1994.
the
It's like a
cave, announcing
comic
himself as
series
George
1 year
Lagao,
after the
hunter and
film
procurer
released.
of
So,
rare animals. In this
I like
account,
supplemental
velociraptors.
material like this. That's
Someone
why
is paying him
I'm
handsome
wondering
for this
why
raptor clothes, and he's
IDW
eager to earn
Comics
his
hasn't
living.
released
Knocking
a
out
Jurassic
balance,
World
Lagao goes
series
for the
yet.
gun
So.
Grant drops.
Like, imagine all the side
Lagao
stories we
follows.
could get
Hot
of
pursuit of the pair,
different
who didn't
characters
expect
in
to
the whole
meet them.
Jurassic
Their
World
chase leads directly
universe.
to
Like anthology series and supplemental
Lagao takes
material.
aim,
I
but the
dig
raptor
stuff like
swats his
that.
gun away like a
So.
fly, protecting her nest from the intruders. Grant throws a boulder, blocking the tunnel off to give them enough time to escape.
How
The
long
raptor isn't giving
how
up
long
his
have I been shaking this? I
Lagao
keep
runs,
drinking
his
now.
speed unable to keep distance between the pursuer. The raptor closes in. Lagao turns and bullseye. Lagao looks at his fallen foe and releases another shot into its dying body.
Oh, these are so good.
Confident in his victory.
I got these. Where did I get these? Oh, these are at Walmart. So I expected the quality to be kind of like cardboard, but these are so good.
The doctors, and after freeing himself, makes his way back to the nest. Meanwhile, Grant and Ellie are in the middle of a dark debate. Grant insists Ellie stay put, as he sees it's absolutely necessary to return to the nest to prevent Lagao from getting any raptors off the island, in fear of what happened at Jurassic Park, happening on a worldwide scale. And he doesn't want Ellie in the middle of all of that. Sattler refuses to stay away, and insists on accompanying her partner. Seeing no way of winning the fight, Alan sets off with Ellie. Their mission, prevent the animals from leaving Nublar at all costs.
Keep hitting that like button. Let's get this live out there. So.
Lagao has them trapped. He's anticipated their return and made.
If I get a lot of people in here, maybe I'll do this. It's like one of those dino reveals.
They're ultimately defeated. After waking up from unconsciousness, Ellie comes to the terrible realization that they're no longer on the island, and along with the raptors, are being ferried out to sea by Lagao. The hunter has won. And that's it. That's the end of the first issue of this Jurassic Park comic series, and a pretty engaging one at that. Now that the raptors are going off the island, anything's possible, and the secret of Jurassic Park seems to have gotten out quicker than anyone would have anticipated, as Lagao was already headed to the island to procure some raptors of his own.
I guess who needs to collect the rest of these comics then? I have Clayton.
Ellie awakens Alan in the belly of a
the whole
large steel
events.
cage used to house large animals, and in a cage directly beside their own, the raptors are kept for their voyage across the ocean. Grant takes his belt off and attempts to use the tongue in order to depict the lock and escape. However, in the middle of doing so, the two scientists notice the raptors paying attention to what they're doing and witness them climbing on the sides of the cage in an attempt to pick their own locks with their saurian claws. Lawala enters the room and discovers Grant's attempted escape, humoring him. Grant breaks the tongue of his belt off into the lock and proceeds to argue with the hunter about his lack of respect to the creatures he's dealing with. Lawala knows nothing about velociraptors and yet treats the situation as casually as normal game. This doesn't worry the hunter as he feels he's dealt with worse before and sprays the raptors with a canister of sleeping gas before doing the same to the doctors. Before they pass out, Ellie and Alan frantically attempt to tell Lawala about the raptors' attempted escape, but black out before they're able to. In the meantime, Lawala has the cargo of his boat transported to the bay of a large plane he's obtained and ascends to the skies. Back on Nublar, Dr. Fisher and the General locate Dr. Grant's jeep and come to the conclusion that the pair is missing and possibly off of the island, putting all surrounding military commanders in the region on high alert. Back in the base hospital, we're greeted with the familiar presence of a certain chaotician undergoing recovery. A soldier fills Malcolm in on the situation and tells him both Grant and Sattler have left the island. Malcolm finds that rather odd, as they need a boat and neither of them possessed one on the island. And just now, waking up from the effects of the gas, Ellie and Alan start their morning with the sharp talons of the raptors attempting to slash them from the outside. The raptors have picked the locks of their cage and are now free aboard the plane. They begin to pick the lock of Doctors Sattler and Grant's cage in an effort to kill the pair. Luckily, the dinosaurs are unsuccessful due to the belt tongue Grant broke off from the lock earlier. Once the raptors lose interest in the cage, they continue to hunt on the plane, stalking about and looking for any other passengers in this strange new environment. The pilot of the plane addresses Lawala on the apparent weight shift in the cargo hold, prompting Lawala to take up arms and investigate for himself. He tells the pilot to lock the door behind him and proceeds into the plane on the lookout. He reveals to us that he had to get the biggest plane available because he didn't know what size raptors were and that he... Grant tells the man if he'd only listened before, he would know the raptors were trying to pick their locks earlier, and now they've escaped completely. Lawala takes his large knife out and removes the tongue in the lock before freeing the doctors and handing them guns. Grant says helping him was the last thing he'd do. Under any
yes, Bevan. I don't know. I didn't want to put the whole suit on, so just the vest was good enough. So. Just a nice casual morning. So.
He knows nothing.
figuring out
There's
what I'm
no
going to do
idea what he's
Sunday.
up
I'm
to.
recovering from
The
last
raptor
night,
falls over
so
some crates after a bad
friend's
lunch,
party.
and as soon as it gets up, Luana fires
So
up.
to wonder why I'm
The
up
pilot,
before
desperately
noon.
fretting
So.
for his comrade, puts the plane on autopilot and takes a weapon for himself, coming to help Luala. George almost
One of
shoots
your
him
favorite
when he notices
films?
his
Cool.
unexpected presence
Which
and
one?
receives
Jurassic
shot
Park or
from the
Jurassic
black
World?
Luala fires his gun, but it's too late. Ellie hears the commotion and, fearing for Alan's safety, runs to the noise's origin. Seeing Luala and the pilot dead on the floor, Ellie aims her gun at the dying raptor, but decides to put a tourniquet on its wound instead of finishing the animal off. It's too weak to fight back as the artery is spilling such a large amount of blood, and Ellie can't kill this miracle of science she feels pity for.
I completely dig supplemental material like this. Like side stories expanding the lore. Whether fans regard it as canon or not, they're just really fun to dig up. So.
Putting the crates on a cable, the scientist opens the door of the bay and suspends the raptors above the open drop of several thousand feet, and unwittingly causes the autopilot to go crazy after the sudden weight shift. Grant runs for the controls of the plane, and before he can fall out of the sky, pulls back on the controls and starts his aerial climb. The heavy crate suspended in the back creates an unforeseen drag in this attempt and pulls them back down into another descent. They're still shifting weights somehow. Ellie turns and heads to the bay to investigate, finding the raptors breaking free of their wooden box. She tries to cut the line, but can't slice through the metal cable.
It's like it took forever to put together.
Falling faster and further, and the inevitable begins. With the plane downed over unknown territories and the Raptors attempting their second escape, anything is possible in the next issue. This one was a lot more action-packed and thrilling in my opinion, and way better than the first one. I'm eager to see what happens next in the story, and hope you all are too. Malcolm seems to be coming back into the fold of things, and that's always a plus in my book. Grant awakens from his sleep in an unfamiliar room, with his arm and leg adorned in bandages and the question of where Ellie could possibly be pounding away in his mind. Across the room, a stranger phones in on a security camera, telling Grant the location of a cane he will need to use when walking in the near future, and an invitation to a meeting with Alan's host is given for when he's ready to come out. Alan's arrival to greet the man responsible for his rescue begins with the welcoming of a man named Raphael, who fancies himself like the angel. Before Grant can thank the man, Ellie comes up behind the doctor and shows her disdain for
Raphael,
as
Lord
she
of
viewed the man as
Phantasms.
drugging them and keeping them there despite their injuries being mostly minor. The jungle broke the major collision the plane would have.
Just having videos on them and chill Sunday. This is what my lives are usually about. So just dinos and chill. So.
Raphael explains that while this is true, Alan and Ellie happen to be only a couple of the man's guests, and after pulling a rope beside the man, reveals the two raptors last seen in the crate behind a large sheet of glass. The raptors angrily lunge and attack the humans, yet are unable to kill their prey on the other side. Raphael explains that the scientists happened to crash in the one part of the jungle Luala was headed for, and reveals himself to be the buyer of these incredible animals. He knows all about Dr. Grant and Dr. Sattler's deployment by John Hammond for the recontainment of the animals in Jurassic Park, and wants the doctors to help him control these animals for his own personal use. An enclosure has been created to house the two healthier raptors for their training, and a steel cage is used to help the raptor Ellie put a tourniquet on, safe from further harm. Grant and Ellie detest to the ignorance of thinking these animals could be tamed as guard dogs, yet Raphael reminds them that there really are no decisions for the doctors to make, because if he can't use the scientists to help accomplish this task, he really has no.
That's the pump station stage
Meanwhile,
music from
military
the
escorts
Sega
Sattler
Genesis
away, get
Jurassic Park
intelligence
game.
about the odd flight patterns of a downed cargo plane and what they believe could have been used by the doctors. Knowing a drug lord may be a part of the situation, the Colombian president was radioed immediately before action is taken. A few days pass, and Raphael is most displeased at the lack of discipline his new raptors are showing him, and after his failed attempts at getting the animals to sit are made, orders the collars fastened around their necks to shock the dinosaurs.
Maybe I'll take a walk in the park later. Record some cosplays.
The animals continue to fight, but are ultimately shocked to
It's like a 1 mile walk from here, so that'll be a good
pass out.
exercise.
After examining the fallen raptors, Ellie shows contempt for the man keeping the dinosaurs here, and tries to convince the other men to let them leave and receive payment by Hammond for returning his animals, to which she's promptly rejected. Here we get the viewpoint of the third raptor. This is the one that was shot in the neck by Luala, and her point of view gives us the interesting perspective of an intelligent animal that only sees humans spouting gibberish it doesn't understand, and hating every single human it sees deeply. After administering horse medicine to the animals, Grant and Ellie are lunged at by the third raptor chained to a nearby wall. The animal, while out of reach, still can't stand the presence of these humans alongside it. And while Ellie is displeased at the way this raptor is acting, still attempts to clean the wound around its neck and make sure it's healing as well as it can. Strangely, this raptor allows her to do this, Time goes by, and Raphael proudly shows his enjoyment at seeing his raptors attack scarecrows on command, and revels in his power to make the creatures stop on a dime. He thanks the doctors for their service, and gets information on soldiers approaching from the east. It would have taken them weeks to come here looking for the raptors. Raphael thinks it would be a shame to disappoint them. In the jungle, a group of rescuers are on the search for Ellie, Grant, and the raptors. All seems monotonous and tiresome, until the raptors spring out of the jungle and tear some of them apart with ease, causing the rest of the group to retreat in terror. One by one, the team is killed, and before a man is able to complete his radio into headquarters, the dinosaurs rip into him as well. A jeep full of soldiers comes upon one of the raptors and attempts to run the dinosaur down and kill it under the tires of the heavy vehicle. But the raptor has other plans. The last of the soldiers run down the final path available, coming face to face with one
Just
of
a
the
chill
lost
Jurassic Sunday.
turning the other direction.
Didn't feel like putting the full suit on, so going live. So.
Delighted in his new guards.
Ask any questions you might have.
Himself to order the raptors
Any
down.
future
Telling them to
uploads,
spend
any
the tape
future
back to their
cosplay
families.
skits,
He gives his group the control
any
of the
toy
ship
lines
first,
I'm excited
declares
for.
their lack of
So,
needing them from here on.
whether you
The
want to
raptors
discuss with me
are
why
now
IDW
Wow.
Comics
Now,
isn't releasing
this
any
is a
Jurassic
totally
World
interesting chapter of
comics,
this story I didn't see that. This was
that
over
should have
20 years
happened
before Jurassic
11
World.
years
We see
ago.
this drug lord not only controlling the raptors, but also ordering them to kill on command. I personally think
See,
this was a
controlling
pretty good mission,
raptors
and one that puts the
existed
story in a good direction
back
for
in
the rest of the series.
1994,
It wouldn't
before
be a
Jurassic World
Park story
happened.
if man's folly of control over nature wasn't exposed, though. So don't expect Raphael to hold this power as long as he thinks he can. At dusk, Grant and Sattler scale the side of the wall they are being kept behind and begin their flight into the jungle. The guards had expected the scientists to give up on hopes of escape and gotten careless, or so the bone diggers thought. Fearing that Raphael would set loose his new raptors, the pair runs deeper into the jungle, only to hear an all too familiar sound. The couple grabs hold of a few vines and immediately begins to climb a tree, and underfoot, the first raptor comes into their view. They wait patiently in the still of the night, making sure not to make a single sound. It's still no match for the instincts and intelligence of the velociraptor. The raptor calls its pack member and begins snapping at the pair as they climb higher. At this point, we are introduced to the name given to this first raptor, Betty, who yanks the vines in the tree's branches, forcing Alan from his hiding spot. Once Grant hits the jungle floor, he dodges the formidable claws of his assailant with the teeth of the dinosaur inches from his face. Then Raphael demands the animal to stop. These animals are under his control now, as he demonstrates proudly to the doctors, luckily for them. He explains how stupid it was of them to attempt an escape and asks Ellie what name they may have given his other raptor. Sattler begrudgingly reveals that they named the other Alpha, or Alf for short, seeing as the raptor was born a male, and the injured one in the clinic is named Celia. After taking the pair back to their lodging, Raphael asks for a report on the health of Celia to be given by Dawn so that she can begin her own training and join his other raptors. He begins to show signs of breaking under pressure, is only calmed by Ellen's calm demeanor and persistence in finding a way to get out of the situation. In the corner of their parent home, Celia views the scientists comforting one another and is noticed by Dr. Sattler. She exclaims this animal will need them now more than ever once its torture begins tomorrow. Ellie again shows signs of despair as she laments the terrible stakes they've been in ever since they went to Jurassic Park, and how the two are deserted with no friends to help them in their imprisonment. Meanwhile, the guard watching the doctors on the video system exclaims that they could all be her friends here, Blondie, making a clear sexual implication in front of his employer. He asks his boss why not, saying they're cut off here in the jungle and have all the drugs they need to get her in the mood.
Ew.
This angers Raphael, who pulls his gun on the guard he's employed and pulls the trigger on the man after making the cruel request. Some things Raphael even finds despicable. He orders his other men to take out the trash and feed him to his raptors.
Oh
They
my
deserve a
gosh,
reward
so
for
Eli
helping
Mills
them
wasn't the
Meanwhile,
first guy
back
who
at the panel on
murdered
Silicon,
an
Dr.
actual
Ian
human in a
Malcolm
Jurassic
is
Park
the whereabouts
film.
of his friends. The soldier gives him the rundown that they're more than likely with the raptors
Dang.
somewhere in the Colombian jungle, where the troops have lost contact. Other than
Because
that,
you don't
their
see
intelligence
many
is limited to
humans
none.
killing other
Malcolm
humans
explains
in the
that Chaos
Jurassic
Theory
World
is already
series,
in
right?
action and that he's going down there himself. The soldier remarks that Ian's been in the hospital for weeks and that he's barely able to walk, telling him that he's not going anywhere. When suddenly, a familiar voice shouts his accompaniment with Malcolm on his journey.
We should all be destroyed.
Malcolm is shocked, as am I, to see Robert Muldoon himself standing inside the doorway,
I'm
thinking he was
shocked.
dead. Muldoon's response, hell, the raptors tried, but I'd raised them. I knew their hunting tricks. Gather your things, Doctor. We have people to rescue. On a side note, I find this reveal incredibly out of left field, and while it is rather cool to see Muldoon back in a Jurassic story, how the hell did he survive? Shouldn't he be like, hey man, not enough room on that helicopter or what? Left me. Anyway, back in the jungle, Celia is reintroduced
Well,
to
you
her
didn't make
other
yourself
sibling. Training is
known.
getting ready to begin. Raphael orders the animals to attack their scarecrows as usual, with the only one neglecting to do so being the new raptor. Raphael orders her one more time, and in a pretty unsettling panel, showing the raptor to already anticipate what's coming next, Raphael electrocutes the raptor and forces it into submission. Curiously, this raptor attacks a scarecrow, but misses its head and instead goes for the arm of its prey. This angers Raphael, who needs his animals to be killers, and insists this creature is playing tricks on him. He says it's finally time to use his animals for what they were trained for, and puts Celia away while prepping Alf and Betty for tomorrow. At the edge of the jungle the next day, a large truck parks out in front of a government building, where 3 judges come out to a gathering of reporters. They announce that they are issuing indictments on Rafael Santos for the deaths of the mayor and chief of police in the city, as well as the deaths of 5 other policemen, 14 federal soldiers, and 1 American drug agent, along with 92 counts of racketeering. Raphael has been pretty busy. The reporter asks the judges if they are in fear of any reprisals, to which the judge rebuttals, "Let him do his worst." Immediately, several armed men file out of the van, firing in the air and releasing the raptors to attack the men making a public statement. The raptors kill one man instantly, while another is able to get in a single shot and graze the raptor's thigh before being cut across the belly himself. A nervous cop screams for pedestrians to get out of the line of fire before firing his gun at the dinosaur, only to miss and hit the window of a car driving by. The car swerves and runs itself into a power line, causing electrical lines to surge all around the chaos-ridden town, all while Raphael laughs triumphantly in his public display of power. The surge lines produce intense electrical voltage that fills the raptors with great fear, and also disables the collars around their necks. The raptors take their leave, and Raphael shouts at them, demanding them to stop. He tells his comrade to zap them, but the man cries out that it's not working anymore. Raphael races after his raptors, who make their way back to their Colombian prison. The dinosaurs viciously attack the guards surrounding the building and begin to strike at the steel doors containing their other pack member, who graciously joins them. Alan and Ellie come into view of the raptors just before they too are killed, while Celia orders the others to back down from the paleontologists. It seems the raptors can indeed remember a kindness. Pulling into his base of operations, Raphael gets out of his vehicle and demands the raptors to stop. When they show their lack of obedience, Raphael delivers shock via their collars that begin working again now back home, only to have the animals bolder and more vengeful now than ever before. The animals ignore their pain and descend onto Raphael like any other prey. As expected, Raphael didn't seem to hold on to his power for as long as he'd hoped, and now the raptors are free from any sort of containment. Alan and Ellie appear to be free to go, but the biggest thing I'm taking away from this issue is the return of Robert Muldoon. As insane and unbelievable as his appearance was, I'm hoping they put him to good use in the following stories, as he was always one of my favorite characters from the film, and actually did survive Jurassic Park in Michael Crichton's original novel. Now we start our story on the hunt in the wilds of Colombia. Pursuing a local jaguar, the 3 raptors snap at the big cat. They found their prey and begin to engage in a fight for survival with it. Now, once the jaguar turns around and decides to fight back, it's promptly swatted away like the inferior beast it is, before being ambushed into a trap set by the 3 dinosaurs. It's good to be free and wild again. The raptors enjoy their kill and eat the jaguar under the dense cover of the jungle. While these animals were never taught hunting skills by their parents, it seems the instincts of these creatures has left them more than capable of taking down modern game. Meanwhile, back in civilization, Alan and Ellie make their way out of the jungle and frantically attempt to explain their situation to the local authority. They explain their kidnapping by Rafael Santos and the reality that dinosaurs are on the loose in the Colombian jungle as they speak. It's taken them 18 hours to trek out of the forest and into town, but unfortunately, the police seem to not have the greatest grasp on English. Their attempts seem tedious and unsuccessful, until they hear a couple of familiar voices. The pair of scientists turn around and thought Ian may have died in the Panamanian hospital, and were under the impression that Muldoon did indeed die. Malcolm gives the breakdown of his search for the doctors with the help of the American military, and Muldoon hilariously says, "I don't know why everyone thought I was dead." He explains that after Ellie ran to the power shed that he sprang the raptor's trap purposefully to get a better shot at one of them, and that both he and the dinosaur ended up surviving their mutual encounters. He says by the time he got back, everyone else had evacuated, and then he himself was evacuated, only to find out that Grant and Sattler actually went back. Malcolm humorously chalks this up to chaos. He then proceeds to go into a deep lecture on the rules of chaos theory, and the raptor's existence in the jungles of Colombia will undoubtedly have deep repercussions for this modern land. He knows that somewhere, way down at the base of all reality, there is some form of unity, and its absolutism requires the basic knowledge that everything has consequences. Currently, the raptors continue their exploration of the new jungle they've taken flight in, and curiously begin to show signs of sickness. Celia is the only raptor presently not affected by this ailment, which causes Betty and Elf to both collapse. The last raptor ponders what enemy could possibly have done this to its kin, before becoming alerted to the presence of others in the jungle watching her. Much to the animal's surprise, local natives spring out of the jungle and begin assaulting Celia with arrows. These primitive weapons fail to be effective against the raptor, however, and the dinosaur snaps back, killing many of the foolish men who attacked her. In the meantime, Grant sneezes similarly to the raptors in the company of Muldoon. The two are sharing a drink at a small bar, and Robert comments on the doctor's cold he's freshly caught. The game warden's experiences in the African outpost seem to have nullified most of the virus's effect on him. Muldoon asks Grant how exactly 6 raptors got off Noblar and wonders if they know who is responsible. Grant reveals to Muldoon that the man's name was George Lawala, a name he instantly recognizes, and explains to be a hunting partner of his back in Africa. He expresses his sadness at the loss of an old friend, which is met with criticism by Alan, who brings up that he and Ellie were kidnapped by the man. But Robert seems to understand that Lawala was just doing a job, and nothing personal was likely to come from his involvement with the raptors. And before leaving the bar, cites Malcolm's theory as idiocy, as nothing affects raptors. Sadly, back in the jungle, the raptor's health continues to deteriorate, with Celia looking after her siblings and keeping an eye on the ever-present vigilance of the natives nearby.
Just watching
She turns back
lives.
for just a small moment to notice that entertaining
Because
the
it's
natives
just,
left dead animals.
just dinos and chill. Just
She attempts to carry the dead
just answering questions in my comments and just watching new videos that Clayton uploads. Like he currently uploaded 2 days ago this like the complete like Raptor comics from 1994. So that was a year after Jurassic Park was released. So I just dig up material like that, just supplemental material, side material, whether fans regard it as canon or official lore. They're just fun to look at. And it's like easier seeing a recap of the whole thing than just reading the comics itself, because they're probably like hard to get a hold of since they're from 1994. Why? What are you doing?
They'll have some extended time together, and everything has consequences. Later that night, a ceremony is put on by the natives in celebration of their new dinosaur gods. They begin to worship the animals and nurture them back to health. With the rising of the sun, the natives attempt to communicate with the velociraptors they've been praising, but that doesn't necessarily go as well as they planned. This was one weird issue. I really enjoyed the banter between Malcolm and the other characters, especially his speech on chaos theory and his later interaction with Dr. Sattler, and thought the Muldoon writing was
I'm occasionally giving commentary.
The weakest issue I think we've come across at this point in time. Natives worshiping
just like I said, Clayton uploaded a whole recap of the whole like Raptor side material
Nevertheless, we are now
from the comics, and it's the first time I'm looking at it, so it's just interesting seeing how the story diverges.
Muldoon takes the time to stop and look over a hill while expressing his hatred for the animals, which seems to have intensified.
I don't know, if I got more people in here, I finally picked one up, so I was gonna do this one out. So this video has about 30 minutes left on it, so I might like try this out after.
Earlier in the story, and it would be a true sin to kill the
I had 30 people in here at once, so I think that was a good amount of number to try to do this. So.
Similar to the one they were born in. We then get an interesting look at the minds of these still young raptors and their views on the world they now inhabit. When they were young, it appears that their mother was keen on teaching the animals to be wary of the dangers of man. What the dinosaurs refer to as the evil hairless apes, specifically Muldoon, would put them all in a cage if they ever found them. And we are shown a humorous image of what the tiny raptors dreamed would happen to them if that day ever came. Unfortunately, that day eventually passed, and the raptors remember it quite vividly as the day they were attacked by the evils of man. Back with our protagonists, we discovered the group has formed a campsite to take rest at night. Alan and Ellie use the downtime to ask Muldoon about his memories of George Lawala, as they only knew him as an enemy, and Muldoon clearly had different feelings. The game warden explains that Lawala and he were both guides in Rhodesia a while back, and actually started off as safari rivals. Some people seem to feel that a black man would know the African bush better than a white, while others took that as being nonsense, and Muldoon says he ended up picking up the business of the latter. Apparently, one day in the bush, George and Robert were shooting bottles hanging from trees, and Lawala ended up shooting the last bottle. After boasting his superiority, Muldoon shot the rope that was hanging onto what was left of the bottle in an attempt to one-up the man, and this seems to have led into a fist fight. The two ceased being friendly rivals that day and became fierce enemies, until both men left a bar one night. At the same time, a rogue lion invaded their local village. The lion had Muldoon flat on his stomach, pinned to the ground, and without hesitating at all, Lawala jumped on the beast and killed it with a large knife he used earlier in the story. That day, the two dragged their hands through the beast's blood and settled their differences, and that's why Muldoon says his killers will die. Back in the jungle, it seems the raptors are becoming aware that they themselves are alone. There aren't any other raptors nearby. They don't fully grasp that they are all that's left in the world, but they can gather that there are no others near them. Not since the deaths of their family members, at least. Becoming more alert now than ever before, the raptors catch a native making his way up to the dinosaurs. They don't know exactly what he's doing, but don't like it either, and decide it's best to leave the man and get out of the area. At dawn, Muldoon expresses his suspicion in trusting the natives of this land. He states that the farther they get into the bush, the more native people seem to become a part of it, and that if they are planning something, they're going to learn that it may be their land, but it's his territory. Ian makes light of Muldoon's intensity and smoothly interjects to Dr. Sattler that the hunter may have just never known the benefits of having a good woman release some of that tension. Sattler asks Malcolm just how many Mrs. Malcolms have come and gone, to which Ian replies that chaos theory doesn't admit to discrete integers. Ellie again lets Malcolm know she has little interest in jungle romance and more for finding the raptors. Malcolm makes it aware that the doctor didn't say she had no interest in the idea, and that it would appear that he's making some progress. She responds jokingly with the words, "Yes, Ian, and at this rate, they'd be close friends by the year 2000. All of this seems rather humorous and calming until Muldoon spots something. There they are, just across the canyon's bridge, and still unaware of the human's presence. While Grant attempts to formulate a plan, Robert raises his rifle scope to his eye before he's attacked by the villagers. Muldoon fights back against the natives. All the while, these men accompanying the group reveal their intentions to stop them from finding the dinosaurs and angering their gods. The villagers corner our scientists, but before anything else can happen, the velociraptors dart across the bridge and begin to zero in on the dinosaur hunters. Celia recognizes Dr. Sattler as the scientist that helped her neck wound from Lawala in the previous issues, but Alf and Betty aren't listening to her cries to stop the attack. Not anymore. Betty begins to pounce for Ellie, and
Yikes. Oh no.
Alan lowers his gun and rushes over to Dr. Sattler, saying he had no choice. He laments the death in light of their situation, but this leads to Muldoon's suggestion of going ahead and killing the other two while they all still have the chance. He's quickly sucker punched by one of the natives for his words. The natives stop and bow to the raptors in this time of urgency, letting the animals know that they are on their side and against the others. The velociraptors understand little outside of the pale apes being the ones attempting to kill them, and the brown apes being the ones that have tried to stop this from happening. Their only reality is the death of their sibling. Now they are down to only two. The raptors race across the other side of the canyon and cut the suspension lines holding its bridge in place. Without a method of pursuit, Muldoon lets the others know they're going to need to order helicopters once they get back to the village. And the raptors continue their journey deeper and deeper into the vast jungles of this strange new land. Now that was a bit unexpected. With only two raptors remaining, the story seems to be winding down into a chase to make sure the animals are either killed or somehow transported back to Nublar. This issue was a bit better than the last in my opinion, but I really think the raptors' dreams were a bit out of place. Still, this is a comic book, so I understand the appeal they have to at least attempt with the younger audiences. Hopefully the statement about helicopters wasn't an empty promise by Muldoon, and with any luck, we could be in for some really exciting action sequences in the future. All in all, I think this issue was just okay enough to pass as a good part of the story. Hopefully you all enjoyed it as well. After running all night in an effort to put distance between them and the humans, the raptors stop to rest in the dense jungles of South America. The memories of their killed kin come rushing back to the animals in this brief moment of relief, and the realization that there are now only two left in the world is a reality they must accept. In the air above them, Malcolm, Grant, Sattler, and Muldoon are searching for the raptors via helicopter with little success. It becomes clear that they are not alone in this rainforest, though. We're guided through the binoculars of a separate character in this vast paradise, one who seems to be closely observing a gorilla of all animals. The gorilla stops after picking up a new scent and descends into the jungle to locate its origin. Celia and Alf come into view only 500 yards ahead and stop immediately once greeted by the fierce aggression of this ape. The raptors split up and assume flanking positions and attack them from the front, but it's just a distraction. However, the gorilla is far more formidable than the humans they're used to. The gorilla retreats and is quickly followed by its jungle observer. High above in the sky, Muldoon is shocked to see a gorilla running around in the rainforest. Everyone on the team seems intrigued at the oddity of seeing an African animal roaming one of the Americas and decides to land their helicopter and investigate, telling the pilot to head back to base and refuel. Malcolm's usual sarcasm and subtle humor seems to annoy Muldoon, and Alan Grant attempts to defuse the situation with some logic of his own about the predicament they find themselves in. Malcolm lingers back and tells Dr. Sattler it's nice her boyfriend stood up for him. Sattler laughs at the thought of calling Grant her boyfriend, to which Ian attempts to find a new name for him. Main squeeze? Steady? Swain? Flame? He asks. Her response is quickly given as being somewhat redundant and a waste of time. Alan begins to notice these advances and asks Ian if he's interested in talking some sense into Muldoon. Of course, the chaotician takes advantage of the situation immediately. Grant then shares his uncomfortableness with her hanging around Dr. Malcolm and asks if he's done anything she would object to. This causes a dispute between the pair when Alan brings up the raptor he killed to save her life, and if it bothered her. She, of course, lets him know this isn't the case and makes it abundantly clear that he is indeed her flame. Finally, Muldoon comes upon the area they saw the gorilla. While observing this land, Ellie is grabbed by the beast and lifted into the trees. Muldoon opens fire, much to Grant's displeasure, but Robert assures the doctor he's only firing off a shot to scare the beast and isn't going to hit Dr. Sattler. Grant calls out for Ellie desperately in the middle of the forest until the trail is lost, and the doctor is nowhere to be found. Elsewhere, the raptors have begun their ambushing of a small jungle animal, and while they eat their kill, they are observed by the same gorilla watcher from earlier. This viewer has some apparent background in animal communication and induces the raptors to be signaling signs for happiness, trust, and peace. It's revealed that these two seem to be starting a courting ritual, and while the two dinosaurs descend into the deep bush, the observer's theory on the animals mating appears to ring true. All the way in California, we are taken to the corporate headquarters of InGen and meet up with John Hammond. Hammond is accompanied by a man named Edgar, whom he's employed. They believe that the theft of the raptors and Hammond's visitors was bankrolled by the rival genetics company Biosyn, the same people responsible for Dennis Nedry's embryo theft and subsequent chaos in Jurassic Park. Hammond has let their attacks go previously unchallenged because his project was supposed to be kept secret, but now he feels these repeated assaults demand an answer, and he wants Biosyn to feel the same type of pain he is feeling, and says there is hunting to be done. Back in the forest, the two raptors are forced awake by the loud presence and challenge of the same gorilla. After putting Ellie down, the animal assaults the raptors and comes close to killing them for being in his territory. The raptors begin to viciously tear into the beast, however, and begin a new strategy. The raptors inch closer to the ape and flank him from the front now instead of the side. This unusual behavioral shift surprises the gorilla, and as soon as it takes one step back, it learns the hard way that the dinosaurs have positioned him to descend down the side of a steep cliff. After the gorilla is taken care of, they quickly run back to search for Ellie, but are left fruitless in their pursuit, as she's already ascended a higher tree in the midst of their battle. Fearing any more trouble, the raptors depart this dangerous place and journey even deeper into the jungle. Grant and the rest of the team make their way to the site of this battle and are quickly relieved to find Dr. Sattler unharmed. She and Alan have a reunion that he deeply appreciates. The raptors continue their trek in the jungle until they are greeted by the large whirling blades of a helicopter. The observer jumps out of her transport and begins to motion hand signals to the dinosaurs. Somehow, these raptors understand these gestures made by the woman: peace and trust. And for the first time, the animals actually don't attack the new human they've just met. These issues keep getting weirder and weirder. I'm really interested in learning where that gorilla came from and how it got in the middle of the rainforest, and I'm also taking a lot of interest in seeing what Hammond wants to do in retaliation for the attack that was made against Jurassic Park. The raptors mating is something I was expecting to happen a few issues ago, and even if the dinosaurs are obvious siblings, it seems life is still attempting to find a way, despite the setbacks these creatures have had in their struggle for survival so early on in life. I'm genuinely excited to see where the series goes from here, and hope you all are too. The old woman gestures hand signals to the raptors in what appears to be an attempt to communicate with the beasts. The raptors don't seem to be backing down from the woman, and the two men on board her helicopter aren't taking a liking to the situation. Her name is revealed to be Dr. Belvedere, and the men inform her that they'll shoot the raptors if they have to in order to prevent her from being attacked. She reassures them that it will be unnecessary, but as soon as she's done speaking to the raptors, they lunge at the doctor and the men raise their guns. She demands them to back down and continues to motion her hand signs of peace, and remarkably, the animals begin to do the same. The two men can't believe what they're seeing, as even though Belvedere is the world's leading expert on animal communication, no one has ever attempted this with dinosaurs before. She learned everything there was to know about gorillas and brought one to the Amazon in an effort to learn more about the apes than previously known. The men go into a private discussion now about the state of their personal affairs. They haven't been doing any work on dinos since they hired that fat guy to steal embryos from Jurassic Park, giving us an all too familiar clue as to who these men really are. Across the globe, we travel to Biosyn. Night has descended upon the genetics company, and secret forces accompany it under the cover of darkness. Once the men enter the area, they scale the wall and leave behind a timed device set for 60 seconds on the roof of the complex. Unfortunately, the men are caught in their flight from the building, and a firefight ensues between the Biosyn security forces and these unnamed trespassers. The clock continues to count down. The battle rages, and lives are lost. One foreign invader shouts for his comrades to get down, but the words register too late for the defending side to react. The men take their wounded and make their way out of Biosyn's territory. Meanwhile, John Hammond is awoken from the ring of his phone at 3 in the morning. Check out the Crichton Easter egg on his bed. He picks up the phone only to be assaulted with verbal harassments from a man named Bill Steingarten, the head of Biosyn himself. He accuses Hammond of sending in engine parasites, which sabotage his main plant, to which John answers with the sly remark that he thought Biosyn was the company to have the market cornered on parasites. Hammond yawns and asks if Bill lost anything valuable in the attack, and Steingarten replies that he damn well did, but that's nothing to reveal to John at this point. 6 guards died in the battle, and Bill calls this a terrible tragedy. Oh, genetics seems to be a more dangerous business as each day passes, Hammond responds. Why, he himself just had a nature preserve in Costa Rica get repeatedly sabotaged. He tells the man to sleep tight and folds his hands behind his head, quite content with life. Back in the Amazon, Dr. Belvedere seems to continue to work with the raptors with little opposition. She realizes that Celia is carrying eggs, yet is greeted with a warning snap from Alf, who doesn't fully trust these pale apes touching their kind. The doctor slaps Alf back on the nose, which causes the Biosyn troops to become understandably shocked at such a move. Alf rears up and takes a defensive stance, unsure of how to proceed, but the doctor is able to signal peace again and let the animals know her standing amongst them is not hostile and simply social. Celia then begins to venture further into the tree line of the jungle and, interestingly, begins to make a nest. Alf watches the humans cautiously while she does this. The two men discuss their admiration of the woman and say if they were ever in a war, they'd want her on their side. They then get a ping from their superior, who happens to be Steingarten himself. Bill asks if these two men, now named Charlie and Ross, if they still have intel on where Engine's people are in the jungle. They of course confirm their knowledge, and the commander orders them to wipe them all out and to get ready for a new man to take charge of the area. The men tell Belvedere they have to leave and asks if the raptors will be fine while they fire the helicopter up for liftoff. She assures them that it will be all right, and the men take off for their grim mission. Elsewhere, Grant and the others continue their trek on the lookout for the raptors. Ian becomes noticeably sick, though, and Ellie shows concern for the chaotician. Grant jokingly implies to Muldoon that maybe they should radio the chopper and get him out of the jungle in order to stop his current fever. But Malcolm assures him that it'll be just fine. Ellie takes Malcolm by the arm and promises to walk with him in their trek just to keep his spirits up, much to the disapproval of Alan. Muldoon and Grant ponder this oddity before they are assaulted with gunfire from Biosyn's chopper. Alan asks who the hell that is, and Muldoon fills them in on Biosyn and their rivalry with Engine. The group duck down underneath the cover of the jungle after intense gunfire rains over them from above. When the shooting stops, Grant assesses the damage and asks if everyone made it, with Sattler questioning where Robert could be amongst them. Muldoon answers this question with a simple assurance he'd be back in a minute. Biosyn's forces search for the doctors below and only find Muldoon standing there, alone, challenging the men to make their move. Gunfire then starts to assault the ground underneath Muldoon, until the hunter's aim gave the back rotor of the chopper a direct hit and sends the flying vessel falling down to the earth in a violent crash. The scientists applaud Muldoon for this victory. Ellie says that if they survive, they certainly won't mess with them again, while Grant thinks that taking them captive as corporate POWs would make better sense. Robert just says that he'll be back soon. Charlie and Ross dart out of the jungle and evade the explosion the helicopter's just been engulfed in. The men lament that it's going to be a hot and thirsty walk back to Belvedere without any of their supplies. Muldoon's voice is heard from the bushes ahead, reassuring them not to worry about it. The men assault the bushes with bullets, but it's going to take more than blind shooting to put Muldoon away. The men search the jungle for any sign of the hunter, when he suddenly jumps out of the tree over their heads and holds one of them hostage with his knife. He tells the man that if he shoots his buddy, he'll get another chance. The troop eventually does just that, and Robert orders his hostage to drop the gun, which scares the man into uttering the words, "But you said," Muldoon said he'd give him another chance. And he is. The troop points out that his enemy still has a knife, but Muldoon tosses it aside, makes it known that this combat will be held man to man. As soon as it's dropped, the last Biosyn warrior lunges at Jurassic Park's game warden and declares him to be too old for that kind of stuff. Muldoon responds with a simple,
I
maybe.
didn't bring it with me.
Maybe not. After returning to his friends, Robert is given the rundown of the damage done by Biosyn. The bullets destroyed their radio, and Ian's fever is getting worse. With no way to call their chopper and the realization they're stuck in raptor country, the group can't think of anything that would make this predicament they're in any worse.
Oh no,
Meanwhile,
yeah,
Belvedere
it's
and
in
the
here.
Raptors hear a motor of a vehicle approaching their area.
I
The
thought
Raptors show a visible level of concern, but the doctor calms them down and reassures them that it's just a helicopter coming back. Out from the chopper, none other than Dr.
Hey,
Fisher
pandas.
introduces himself to Belvedere. He's pleased to have her assistance
Finally
in
a
this
new
matter,
comment in like 10 minutes.
but he's going to take charge of this operation now.
Yeah.
Now that was a really good issue. I was beginning to wonder if Dr. Fisher
Yeah,
was
of
just
course
a
I
throwaway
remember
character
you.
they created at the beginning of the arc, but it's so satisfying to see them reintroduce him this far into the story. The fighting Muldoon took part in, as well as the corporate battle between...
Yeah, I
Biosyn
remember.
and
Thanks for
Muldoon
commenting
was
on my
excellent.
shorts.
And all in all, I really think this is...
Yeah, thank you. Make sure you like this live also. So I think I'm gonna log off in maybe 15 minutes. I think I could go at least. I could go live for like an hour or 2 hours, but I'm just making this a chill Sunday morning, just going live, just to show everyone I'm still here, and then answering any questions any of my audience might want to ask while I just put videos on. So. All right, thanks for chiming in.
But slowly and surely, the larger animals are overtaken by the smaller predators, and eventually, both tyrants fall to the awesome size and strength of the savage velociraptor pack. It's a beautiful dream for the sleeping Celia. Belvedere goes over the complexity of the female's hormones during her nesting stage, and how the dinosaurs are...
Yeah, sounds good, yeah. Yeah, thanks for logging in.
Which gives
Yeah.
them a sort of contact high. Fisher is quite impressed with her work and is enjoying his time with the raptors. The doctor was a man invited to assist in the recovery of Jurassic Park, and has since been employed by Biosyn. It's revealed that InGen didn't like Fisher nearly as much as Drs. Grant and Sattler, and after dismissing the rogue scientist, he eventually went to the head of Biosyn himself, Bill Steingart, and began work to locate Hammond's raptors from there. Belvedere herself is working for Biosyn, but her aspirations are only to study the dinosaurs, and wants nothing to do with Fisher himself. The paleontologist walks further away from where Belvedere is staying with the raptors, and comes across some fellow Biosyn agents, building a perimeter wall around the
Just
dinosaurs.
charge this
Now,
primitive thing
unknowingly
right now.
trapped in the jungle,
Do any of
these
you know what
raptors
this
aren't getting
is?
away as
Probably
easily as they
not.
have before. Elsewhere in the jungle, Malcolm is continuing to show signs of his fever getting worse. Muldoon suggests that the only hope for the doctor to be the aid of local natives here in the rainforest. Even if it is just herbs, anything is better than nothing. On their trek to find the village, the chaotician is attacked from behind by a large jungle predator.
Yikes.
The jaguar pounces on his back and slashes the man across the shoulder before being blasted by Muldoon's gun. Ellie uses her shirt to stop the bleeding
Oh,
and admits
shoot.
that they may get out of the jungle, but she may have to be naked. Muldoon insists that the group keep moving and reassures the team that their odds of survival will indeed shorten if they give thought to any useless distractions.
Oh,
Luckily for them, they do local village just short of where the jaguar attacked them. Muldoon, as usual, takes charge and communicates with the natives through a broken understanding of Portuguese and Spanish. They are without a radio, yet do offer to provide a doctor for Ian. The chaotician humorously only has Ellie on his mind while they carry him to receive care, telling the natives he remembered her saying she was going to be naked back there and that the locals need to stay away from her because she's his. The group acknowledges that the jaguar attack has made his condition worse, and Ellie recommends someone staying behind at the village to make sure he remains safe. She asks Alan if he'd like to stay back, but the scientist can't fathom having her in more danger alone with only Muldoon to help her in the jungle. He has more experience out here and tells her to stay put while they get back to civilization. All the while, Ian's fever begins to worsen, and hallucinations begin to overtake his mind. Back in California, John Hammond is interrupted by Edgar, one of his trusted aides. Hammond asks if it has anything to do with the unauthorized raid Edgar started on Biosyn without his permission. And while Edgar admits that a retaliation is more than likely, and it's odd that it has yet to happen, that no, it isn't about the corporate battle. He gives Hammond the rundown on Muldoon's disappearance, as the radio they've been using to communicate has gone dead, and expresses concern about the well-being of the scientists. Hammond orders all available copters to search for them and to spare no expense. And so InGen sends out teams of people to locate and rescue, if necessary, the people employed. by John Hammond. They comb the jungle, searching for anything out of the ordinary, and one of them stumbles across an odd patch of greenery that doesn't quite look right. It becomes clear to the pilot that this is in fact a camouflage cloth amongst the trees. He lowers his chopper amongst the foliage and gets the rude awakening of Alf leaping toward the glass of his vehicle. He tilts away just quick enough to miss collision with the raptor and picks up his radio in an effort to communicate back to base and let them know that Fisher is delighted in his boy's accuracy. But Belvedere is terrified for her raptors. She runs down to them and gives them the peace sign, making sure they aren't too startled. She makes sure the animals know she's there to help and not as an enemy, while Dr. Fisher then tells his men to get their pilots in the sky and make sure nobody else finds their hiding place. At the same time, Grant and Muldoon are engaging in a personal debate at the current state their adventure is in. Grant is tired of the constant attacks and dangerous scenarios he and Ellie have been put through, and longs for the day he can be done with this endless chase. Muldoon isn't interested in Alan's criticism, though, as there is currently the sound of a chopper emanating nearby. Muldoon recognizes the helicopter as one of the engines and races out of the jungle and into an opening in a desperate effort to be seen. Robert holds his knife up to the sunlight and luckily gets the attention of the pilot, who turns around and heads back to pick them up. Unfortunately, a Biosyn pilot sees this and opens fire on the small aircraft. Muldoon raises his gun and fires it directly at the helicopter, making a direct hit and destroying their enemy. Unfortunately, the burning chopper falls directly onto Engine's transport and collides with it, creating a fireball of steel debris headed straight for Grant and Muldoon. The two frantically make the only decision they can and jump for the water in a desperate attempt to stay alive. Meanwhile, back in the village, Ellie continues to nurture Malcolm, but his fever seems to be growing worse. Now the raptors are shown to have come full circle and begin guarding new eggs of their own in this strange new world. Fisher reveals that this is just what he was hoping for, and Belvedere displays her eagerness in studying this incredible discovery. The Biosyn operative simply relishes the idea of turning 2 raptor captives into a healthy 6. Wow, I can't believe we are in the home stretch with this series. We've come all the way through 9 issues of the story, and soon we will see the end of the Raptor Comics storyline. This issue was pretty average in my opinion, and definitely not as good as the last, but still rather enjoyable. Now, when we get done with this initial series, I want to reassure all of you that this isn't going to be a one-time thing, because luckily for us, there are a lot of Jurassic Park comics to go into. Now, the next series after this ends is actually a sequel story to this called Return to Jurassic Park, and features many of the same characters we've seen in this story so far. Now, to say the series has been a success is putting it lightly. I greatly appreciate all of you who have tuned in every episode to catch up on the story, and want to thank all of you for taking an interest in my content. It really means a lot, and I think it's great that more Jurassic Park fans have access to the knowledge within these storylines, and it's incredible to think about how relevant these may come when talking about future Jurassic World titles. The faint noise of eggshells chipping can be heard in the raptor nest.
I guess.
It's finally time for these little dinosaurs to enter the world and meet their parents, Celia and Alf. Life indeed has found a way. Dr. Belvedere observes the creatures from a distance and watches their behavior change from aggressive to docile as soon as the first egg hatches. She can't believe how blessed she is to witness what no human being has seen before. She will be the first to watch these dinosaurs discover their instinctual parenting abilities, and the first to see these little dinosaurs grow with adult supervision. Dr. Fisher promised her a position as the head keeper of Biosyn's new dinosaur park. The man comes up behind the elderly woman now, telling her it's time to leave. She doesn't want to part with the raptors, but realizes that Fisher is in charge of this operation now, and what he says is absolute. They both walk out of the perimeter wall Biosyn has constructed to keep the raptors trapped in, while Alf and Celia tend to their chicks. An odd thought presents itself to the new father while rearing his children. Where were the apes? Why had they left them alone? Now, of all times? This bothers the raptor. He darts out of the jungle the way the humans left and comes across the large steel wall. He remembers walls. Raphael had them. He had to kill him because of them. He remembers being locked inside. Luala did that to him. But he can't pick his way out of this trap. The dinosaur looks immediately to his right, and then he looks immediately over to his left. And then Alf gets really angry. Alf runs all along the perimeter of this wall and is met with a corner. He keeps running further down the way and is rewarded with another corner. Alf throws his body against the wall and tries to climb his way out of this prison, but it's no use. He sees the people responsible for his family's entrapment and gives them the well-deserved resentment they have earned. Belvedere is saddened to have these animals so upset with him, but Dr. Fisher's only response is not to worry. He was in charge of the cleanup at the original Jurassic Park, and he fancies himself an expert on containing dinosaurs. Belvedere reminds the doctor that raptors still managed to escape their enclosure at Jurassic Park, and they still had no idea how. This angers the newly elected Biosyn agent, who reassures her that he is indeed the best and knows damn well what he's doing. While this is happening, Malcolm and Ellie share a sweet moment. one of passion, one of...
Oh, yeah.
It seems that both Alan Grant and Ian Malcolm have been woken from the same dream, one Alan hates deeply. Muldoon and Alan ponder on their escape from this desolate rock they've managed to throw themselves on. They need a way out, and they need one bad. All the while, Ellie comments on Malcolm's dream. He expresses how lovely it was. And all the while, Sattler doesn't quite understand and lets him know that he was moaning while having it. The doctor thinks that Ian's fever is gone, and Ellie lets the chaotician know that she's been butting heads with the natives, making sure he got the best care. This prompts Malcolm to comment on such commitment. Dr. Sattler says she'd do the same to any of her friends. But Ian's not buying it. He thinks there's more to them than just being friends. And holy...
Oh no.
Ellie hates what she's done. She admits she's wondered what it would be like to kiss him, but it doesn't change anything for her. Malcolm thinks otherwise, but Sattler says that she refuses to leave Alan. She tells Ian she's going to spend the rest of her life with Grant, and that Malcolm is better than he thinks of himself. But now is no time to debate such things. He's clearly recovered, and the others have been missing too long. It's time to find the rest of the group. Back in California, Edgar fills Hammond in on the downed helicopter. This makes Hammond even more anxious, and he demands that every one of his people be found safe and sound, and that Steingartner will pay for putting his friends in harm's way. He is unfortunately in the middle of corporate politics and has to attend an awards ceremony for the Biosyn CEO. Back in the jungle, Alpha is seen returning to his family and motions Celia to leave and attend to something while he watches the young. The guards put on duty to surveil the raptors don't pay attention to the animals as well as they should. They just now spotted Alpha again, and for some reason he looks unusually dirty. While this is happening, an engine chopper lands by the native village and desperately asks where the doctors have gone. One of the locals fills him in on the whereabouts of Sattler and Malcolm, and the pilot makes his way to pick them up. Ellie and Ian are continuing their journey through the jungle, and Ian finally opens up to her about what's been going on. He says he highly respects the decision she's made. Sattler doesn't believe her. What woman would believe that new age sensitive guy stuff anymore? She thinks he's playing her as stupid, but Ian insists. He finally has a clear answer after their kiss. She was a clear adult who made up her own mind, and clearly not ex-Miss Malcolm material. Ian stops and realizes that a fire has taken place here recently. The two venture further and find the wreckage of the choppers, and while running to the edge of the cliff, locate Alan's rifle hanging down the steep edge of the water. Regardless of what may have happened, they both push forward. Celia returns to the family and leads them to where the two raptors have been disappearing to. Now it's Alf's turn to dig again. Meanwhile, the guards begin their walk back to the Biosyn base, and Fisher overhears their description of how dirty Alf seemed to be each time he came back into their view. This prompts him to make an investigation for himself. The two scientists finally come upon the wall the genetics company has built and are greeted with a thunderous roar of man-made vehicles rushing to check up on the raptors. Sattler recognizes Dr. Fisher and Malcolm fills her in on his boot from engine. He heard they got rid of him before he left the hospital. Dr. Fisher confirms these accusations and lets them know it's the very reason he's running the show down here, and also the reason they won't be leaving this jungle. Suddenly, Alf leaps from the dirt, presents himself to the humans. The tunnel is finished, and Celia joins him. Fisher orders all Biosyn agents to fire on the raptors and scientists, much to the dismay of Belvedere. Ian pushes Ellie out of the way and the assault begins, but Alf and Celia have become all too familiar with men and their murderous ways. Alf corners Dr. Fisher. He screams for Belvedere to tell him the sign for friend. He begs and dies. Alf and Celia turn their attention now to Dr. Belvedere. She motions the friend sign to the dinosaurs. She tells them she's never attempted to hurt them. She declares her true love for all animals. It's all she's lived for, and wants the dinosaurs to be happy and to raise their family. She is their friend.
Ha.
Now the raptors turn to the apes they've seen before. Malcolm and Ellie know it's over and wait for the dinosaurs to end their lives. The babies now make their way out of the hole the adults have dug, and the family decides to leave. They have no reason to stay here any longer. It is at this moment that a helicopter comes into view of our protagonists. An engine man climbs out and tells them to get in. If they're quick enough, they can catch the raptors and end this chase. But Sattler insists that they need to find Alan and Muldoon before anything else. Malcolm lets her know that this means it will be impossible to ever find the raptors if they make that move, but she has to insist. We jump ahead 2 days later in Venezuela. Everyone is accounted for and enjoying drinks at a local bar. Ellie is ecstatic at spending time with Grant. She thought she'd never see him again. It's all thanks to Muldoon they survived. But Robert still wishes he'd been with Sattler while all the action went down. If he was there, He makes it known they wouldn't be worrying about the raptors' whereabouts anymore. Malcolm chalks this all up to chaos. Nothing is predictable at the end of it all. They'll never find the animals now. It's too late, and it's been too long. Grant says maybe it's better this way. There are all kinds of dangerous game out there in the wilds of the world. Maybe it's best to just step aside and trust in nature. It's better that way. And that's it. That is the final issue of the Jurassic Park Raptors hijack storyline, and also the end of the complete Raptor run. Now, this was honestly one of the better issues of the whole series, and it will probably rank in my top 3 of all the stories that were told within this line. All in all, I think it's been fun going over these lesser-known Jurassic Park titles. They definitely don't hold a candle to the films, or most of the films anyways, but I do really enjoy what is presented here. Now, as I've mentioned before, this isn't where the Jurassic Park comic story ends, as there is indeed a whole sequel dedicated to the story called Return to Jurassic Park. It's a 9-issue story, so nearly as long as what we've just completed, and I'm sure it will be just as exciting and interesting as what has come before it. Before The Lost World came out in 1997 and the novel was adapted from its shelves 2 years earlier, a totally different Jurassic Park story was told. Recently, I've completed the full overview and an analyzation of the events depicted in the Jurassic Park Raptor comics series. I promised to give my final thoughts on the series and review it as a whole after I did each issue individually, and felt that it was a story deserving as such, as well as one that would be cool to rank up against other Jurassic material and be a proper send-off to this really interesting part of the entire franchise. Now, this series was made literally immediately after the release of Jurassic Park, and the first issue was actually released before the movie even hit VHS back in October of 1994. Because of this, the story in this series takes place directly after the events of the first film, and the run keeps Alan, Ellie, Malcolm, and Hammond involved in the aftermath of Jurassic Park instead of splitting them up like the film sequels eventually did. Now, this story actually has the notoriety of technically being the first sequel to Jurassic Park, as even Michael Crichton's sequel novel, The Lost World, wouldn't come out until 1995. That being said, it is definitely not as high quality, in my opinion, as the stories in the Lost World's book and film version, or Jurassic World for that matter. Now, I actually do prefer this to the story we got in Jurassic Park 3, but my opinions on this part of the Jurassic Park legacy is limited to its constraints within a comic book form. And honestly, I do believe it would have been a very successful sequel if it was given a film treatment. The oddest thing about this whole story for me seemed to be the lack of any other dinosaurs other than the velociraptors that were featured throughout it. I know it's called Raptor and Raptors Attack and Hijack and so on, but I really find it rather intriguing that they chose to immediately take the story off of the island and instead feature an adventure in South America following the escaped dinosaurs who were causing all kinds of terror and panic everywhere they went. This story also showcased a lot of human error in thinking these raptors can be controlled by the likes of a Colombian drug lord and rival genetics company agent in both Rafael Santos and Dr. Fisher. Raphael was a very odd choice of a villain in my opinion, as the portrayal of a drug king in the middle of the rainforest using the raptors as attack hounds was really corny to me. It constantly reminded me of License to Kill, in which James Bond has to take on cocaine manufacturers who have used a great white shark to maim his CIA friend Felix Leiter. And while I really enjoyed that 007 film, I really thought that doing this in a Jurassic Park setting was kind of taking a big step down from the normal scope of how grand these stories can be when told from the perspective of good intentions being muddled with bad ethics. And the ethical implications themselves seemed absent in all of this. Raphael did exhibit the same faults that all of the Jurassic Park stories try to symbolize, as man's control of nature being something that shouldn't be treated lightly, and genetic powers usage and consequences resulting in the unpredictability of future situations, as well as the hubris and folly of man being put on full display from the unworldly tampering with these things. But, in all honesty, the attraction of a dinosaur theme park is far more compelling than one of a petty drug lord trying to kill his enemies. Now, Dr. Fisher, on the other hand, is shown to be the very archetype of Jurassic Park villain. He's someone who's been disgruntled or gotten upset over the company's treatment with him and goes to InGen's rival in an attempt to better himself and climb the ladder higher with his own ambition, directly echoing Hammond's and Jurassic Park's as a whole in terms of self-confidence and innovation. This, of course, backfires on Fisher, just as we've seen it backfire on Dennis Nedry, Peter Ludlow, and even Simon Masrani. Malcolm's famous lesson on ethical behavior that he preaches to Hammond was constantly in my head during his scenes. Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. Dinosaurs Dinosaurs and man are two species that have suddenly been thrown back into the mix together in this continuing story from the first film. And it's interesting to see how immediate the resulting consequences are for the humans now living with superior life forms on the same planet. The constant exploitation and pursuit of these animals by Biosyn and hunters like George Lawala was very entertaining and one of the things I've always admired most about this franchise. Now, bringing Muldoon back was a move that I thought paid off really well for this story, and seeing him go Captain Ahab against the Raptors was really fun. Robert,
Because even in the fan base, people like to agree that he survived, but of course, in Lost World, I guess that already canoned that he wasn't. So, but it's still like people always keep saying that he was just playing with the Raptors, but it still doesn't explain how he got off the island or what happened to him afterwards. So, but fans still like to want Muldoon to survive since because of his character and his knowledge of the Raptors, but that's probably why all these like fan works or supplemental material have him survive and stuff. So
Dune was a character that actually lived in Michael Crichton's original book, and he's one of my favorite characters from the original movie. So seeing him make his return and devoting himself to hunting the Raptors was really cool. Now, Malcolm's constant flirting and romantic advances made on Dr. Sattler were actually something I didn't expect at all. And when it finally leads into the two kissing in the final issue, I was actually shocked. That is something I never thought I would see happen, and it didn't even occur to me to even be a possibility after Ian became aware of Grant and Sattler's relationship during the middle of Jurassic Park. It's so weird to see where these old stories lead after having seen The Lost World and Jurassic Park 3. Now, of course, the run also introduced us to several ideas that would later become used in Jurassic World, albeit quite differently from what is shown here. However, I think it's important to note that both instances are the only known times that velociraptors are given names in the franchise, outside of Lex naming the baby raptor Clarence in Crichton's first book. Betty, Alf, and Celia go on a long and wild adventure throughout the Amazon, dodging containment by humans like Santos, and running from hunters
I've
like
been live
Lawala
for like an hour.
And the raptors
now,
themselves become somewhat of their own characters, similar to Delta Charlie.
Just let me know if you have any questions, what you're looking forward to, or any other videos I'm uploading or cosplay reels. I'm just keeping this a chill Sunday. I'm probably going to go live maybe once a week, even if it's just me reacting to videos like this. While I have like my audience just comment occasionally, then I'll answer them. But if I can get a lot of people into live, then where did real velociraptor? I'm not sure.
I saw the inbreeding between siblings Celia and Alf early on in the plot, once Betty had been killed, as the only way that this species would survive. And what is Jurassic Park's most essential message, if not that life will find a way? The overall narrative leading to South America is actually one taken from the ending of the original novel, where it's shown that animals have been destroying lysine-enriched crops and making paths throughout the mainland, basically hinting that the dinosaurs have indeed migrated off of Nublar and are thriving in the wilds now alongside man. This is an idea that I am confident we will see in a future movie, and one that I can't wait to see on the big screen. But kudos for Raptor.
That's possible. Yeah, that is possible. Wait,
of the new characters created for this run.
No, you're right. There were male velociraptors in Jurassic Park 3. The pack raptors with the quills. Yeah, those were male raptors. So.
Behind George Lawala, and even though her death surprised me at the end of the story and was unexpected to a few of you as well, I have to say I was quite satisfied with it. Her death by the Raptors is the very embodiment of what this franchise has always warned its audience about, and the chaos that ensues once mankind thinks control over the species we've brought back from the grave is possible is really poetic and something I think every Jurassic Park fan can identify with. The issue that harkened back to King Kong with the gorilla fighting two velociraptors reminded me heavily of The Lost World and all of the subtext and visual representations seen in the second Jurassic Park film to its
but Blue was bred
and it was
from
a fun
monitor
from the usual hunt for the raptors that was going on.
Or that was the genetic code that filled in for Blue's
series, and although
making genetic makeup, the monitor
Park stories told in films,
which was in
books, I don't
want to say it's in 2005 because 2005 is when the official Jurassic World opened, and it's been going 10 years since. So Blue might have been born maybe 3 years before 2015. I forgot how much their growth rate was, but I know when a Brachiosaurus just hatches, it'll grow really huge in only just 9 months. So
if turned into a film. The only issue I believe audiences would take with it is the lack of other dinosaurs to see outside of the rare Tyrannosaur, and children would likely frequent this outing less than the first. It also may not have received as high praise due to its drug lord villain being more copy and paste than usual Jurassic Park baddies are, but hey, who knows? I enjoyed this series and hope you all did too. Personally, this is how I think the series holds up in terms of issue to issue, and these are my final thoughts on the run. Now, I hope you all enjoyed this discussion and review of the series overall. And if you did, I'd appreciate it if you left me a like. I'm curious to hear what you all would rank the series as issue to issue, like I've done here, and how good you think the comics were compared to the other stories we've seen as
Stop
an
motion
initial
might be
sequel to
interesting.
Jurassic Park.
I don't know if I have
Now,
to.
before I go,
I don't know if I have the patience to do stop motion though. So. Or the backgrounds, especially here in this dorm room. So. Okay. Okay, yeah, that video was an hour long. I've been live for an hour just reacting to it, so anything else anyone has to ask, I'll stay on this live for a bit longer to answer any questions. If not, I'm probably gonna log off, so let me see what this looks like. Or let me just see if I could angle it properly. Just if I wanted no.
Apes touching their kind.
Quiet.
Back on the nose, which causes the biosentries to become understandably shocked.
What's playing right now? Okay. You're doing stop motion right now. Well, that's cool. I would like to see that. So. I'm trying to see if I could angle this tripod in a way where I could probably do this. So y'all been patient. Y'all been patient being on this live for a bit. Oh, now I just tilted it. Okay. Oh, that's better. That's doable, right? Okay. Yeah, so I think I was planning to activate this when I had more people in this live, but I guess I should just do it. Whatever. So let me just fill a thing of hot water up right now. And then where'd that bucket go? Oh, it's right here. Oh yeah, I saw that comment of you getting that Scorpius Rex today. Congrats. So. Water's getting warm enough now. Okay, sounds good. Thanks for logging in. So, all right, bye. Guess I'll save this for another time. No, or you know what? I'm gonna end. Bye. I'm gonna end the live now, and I'm just gonna record this as a short. So that should probably do well. So went live for an hour and 11 minutes. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks for getting me at least 30 people in this live at some point. So probably gonna, hopefully I could do something more fun and not watch something and bore my audience. But okay, thank you. Hit that like button before you leave. Thank you. So yeah, hopefully I could find something more better to do. Maybe when I go to Universal Studios, I could go live again and then I could show something even better. So yeah, I'm gonna end this live now. I'm gonna record this as a short, and then I'll upload it either tomorrow or sometime this week, because I have a bunch of other shorts coming up that I'm gonna upload daily. So thanks for watching. Bye.